Okay, and now what I want to do is make sure that I am presenting the right screen. So I'm going to go back here, share, and then come back over here. There we go. Okay, I'm seeing it. Are you? Okay, we're just okay. We're just going to go with this. Okay, let's take a look at some more of these. So we've got moral integrity, bravery. Let's just kind of quickly go through some of these. Conviction. Do you know what conviction is, Isabel? Okay. It the way I see it is determination. That would be a synonym for me is determination, in that he truly believes that what he's doing is right. Uh, would you agree that Odysseus demonstrates conviction at some point? Do you know when? Mhm. And I think, too, where he really demonstrates it is when it comes to Penelope. And I can't remember if it's Circe or Calypso that he says, for any other man you'd be enough, but because I have Penelope, you're not enough for me. Do you remember if that was Circe or Calypso? Okay, so let's see if we can find Calypso. Um, every time I hear that, I keep want to sing that John Denver song, which you wouldn't. I don't think you've ever heard that, Isabel. It's a very old song. Um, I think that's in with I Am Laertes' son, because that's when or the Wanderings. Forgot if it's the Wanderings where he talks about Calypso. I think it is. Um, yeah. Okay. Well, this is where we have another Homeric simile in starting about line 41. A gull patrolling between the wave crests of the desolate sea will dip to catch a fish and douse his wings. No higher above the white caps, Hermes flew until the distant island lay ahead. Then rising shoreward from the violent ocean, he stepped up to the cave. So he's comparing Hermes with this gull here. But anyway, Divine Calypso, Magical Calypso, Hermes. The strong god glittering left her as he spoke, and now her ladyship, having given heed to Zeus's mandate, went to find Odysseus. It's got to be in here somewhere. Mm-hmm. Well, we know he saw nothing of the great Odysseus. This would be Hermes. Saw nothing of the great Odysseus, who sat apart as 1,000 times before, and racked his own heart, groaning with wet eyes, scanning the bare horizon of the sea. He's continuing. Bingo. Mm-hmm. Perfect. You said that was 15? Ah, there we go. See, I don't have that on my page. Okay, so that was on page 654. Perfect. There you go. So that definitely shows a conviction or a determination to keep himself. He is the husband of Penelope, and he wants to return to her. Okay, courage. Is there a difference between bravery and courage? It's kind of weird that they would both be on the same list. To me, they're the same. But do you think there's a difference, Isabel, between bravery and courage? Okay, yeah, that's good. That's good. I like that. I do see that there's kind of like a second person, or you're doing something to help or assist other people in that bravery. Courage is more something that's internal. I would agree with that. Yeah. And oh, that's good. Right. Um, and I think immediately about when he uh, has the men tie him to the mast so that he can hear the song of the sirens. Although I have no idea why that was important. Did you ever find out why that was important? Why he had to hear the song of the sirens? Right. Yeah. This definitely would be a master's degree thesis. Trying to figure that one out. I just think it's a man being a man, you know, kind of like going to the Bass Pro Shop and still smelling stink bait. So, anyway, I digress. Okay, self-sacrifice. Um, I'm not sure about this one. Do you think he demonstrates self-sacrifice, Isabel? Uh huh. True. Yeah. So it has to do with why he does that, and let's take a look at that. Just because now my curiosity is getting the best of me. Um, Odysseus and his men return to Circe's island, where Circe warns Odysseus of the perils that await him. She's still speaking, so that's not it. Where you get to the sirens. Where are the sirens? Scylla and Charybdis. Those are fun. That's one whirlpool I don't want to take a dip in. Um, okay. All right. So I'm on 382. Um, heads up, lads. We must obey the orders as we must obey the orders as I give them. Get the oar shafts in your hands and lie back hard on your benches. Hit these breaking seas. Zeus, help us pull away before we founder. Okay, so he's guiding them through this storm. That's Scylla. I'm still on Scylla. I'm sorry. This was part of my problem is that I was constantly Scylla, Sirens, Charybdis. It is. The witch tells him how to avoid the dangers of the Sirens and Scylla and Charybdis. He has himself tied to the mast so that he can hear the sirens singing without succumbing to it. That's probably what it was. I think that this is a part that your text doesn't give you. It's just kind of like in the in between parts, and so it's just a task that he must complete. So um, somebody had to hear it, I guess is what that is. So yes, that would be where the self-sacrifice is. Selflessness, some of these are blending so closely together with that, but you don't have to cover all of these. These are just ones that where the rest of them there, they are helpful, protective, honest, and determination. One thing, and these are the characteristics of heroism. This does not mean that Odysseus possesses all 12. I don't think it's possible to possess all 12. Then now you're going into that person's not really a human. Um, that's abnormal. Now, there are human weaknesses, and usually these human weaknesses are what lead to the character's fall in some way. Certainly, it's the reason why it takes them so long to get home, because some of these frailties are, for example, pride. This is what really starts the whole thing anyway, because if he brags about blinding Polyphemus, and he's the one who, and he is. You remember who Polyphemus is related to, Isabel? Yep, that's the one. And so, because of that, Poseidon shoots him off, across the sea so that they can't go back to Ithaca. And so that kind of starts the whole thing there. And every time he tries to get a little closer, he screws up somewhere. If we look specifically at, because I think he could have gotten away with blinding Polyphemus and not having to, fess up. Where's Cyclops again? Cyclops is on 660 to 670. And it's going to be towards the end of that section. So I'm going to look on 670. Actually, no, 669. Because the men, he's out there shouting at the top of his lungs, and the men are saying, God's sake, Captain, why bait the beast again? Let him alone. Because he's saying, it's me. I am the one who defeated you. It is Odysseus. I mean, he's smart enough to tell Polyphemus his name is nobody, so that he won't be able to identify him. Then he turns right around and confesses. It was me. It was Odysseus. And they're telling him, shut up. And that's when they get into trouble. So certainly a sense of pride, love of glory. That's such a man trait too. Human, you're right. I guess we all kind of love glory. We like it when people compliment us. We like it when people tell us we've done a great job, and we like having that attention. Obviously, so does Odysseus. Certainly, there's a recklessness within Odysseus, like within that. But to me, these are all related. Stubbornness. Whoops. Back. So we've got pride, love of glory, recklessness, stubbornness. Are there any other traits that are negative that you can attribute to Odysseus? Okay. It's enough to work with, right? That pride is definitely the big one. Definitely. Okay, now I actually got these from last year's discussion boards, because I know there are people that have been, it's been difficult. I have such a small class, it's hard to find some of the, to get where the discussion boards are full. Mine are not full. But here's what somebody said: throughout the Odyssey, and this is about frailties, Odysseus has many negative impacts that affect his character in the story, including intuition, and I don't know what the student meant by that, but stubbornness and arrogance. In the Lotus Eaters, he shows intuition and arrogance by making the sailors check the island in case they are in any danger, even though he could have just done this himself. Then I sent out to two picked men and a runner to learn what race of men that land had sustained. Um, do you agree that this is a frailty? Making somebody else. Okay, go ahead. Right. Yeah. He did do some stuff himself. He did put himself out on it, but he also knows because when he is talking to Tiresias down in the underworld, and Tiresias tells him, "You're going to come out of this by yourself." And he doesn't bother to tell his men. He just kind of says, "Oh, well," and he doesn't tell them, I think, because he doesn't want to worry them. I mean, what can he do about it? But I don't know. Should he have? Should he have said anything to them? Mhm. Right. So there was a little bit of selfishness in there, wasn't there? Okay, here's another one. Odysseus shows mainly his stubbornness and arrogance in the Enchantress Circe. He shows his stubbornness when he took the bag of winds, knowing that he needed to use them. Dear friends, no need for stealth. Here's a young weaver singing a pretty song to set the air a tingle on these lawns and paven courts. Goddess she is, or lady, shall we greet her? He shows his arrogance when he is telling the story about how he got the bag of winds in the first place. None would attack. Oh, it was strange, I tell you, but switching their long tails, they faced our men with tidbits for them, as he will from table. So, where'd you get it? What's in it? There's something good in it. And instead of saying it's nothing you need to worry about, we're going to need it later, that's all you need to know, he teases them about it, and that just eggs on the curiosity even more, so that eventually when he falls asleep, that's when they open it. So that stubbornness and arrogance certainly leads to the men getting pushed back one more time. So first it was Poseidon, and now it's the wind. So, yeah, and then there's some heroic traits. Odysseus shows the heroic traits of bravery, trust, and patience throughout the Odyssey. In the Lotus Eaters, he shows his bravery by going to find his men after sending them off to see what else was on the island. They had fallen down the lotus flower trap and started to show the effects the Lotus Eaters had shown. They fell in soon enough with the Lotus Eaters, who showed no will to do us harm, only offering the sweet lotus to our friends, but those who ate the honeyed plant, the lotus never cared to report, nor to return. They longed to stay forever, browsing on that native bloom, forgetful of their homeland. Odysseus also shows his patience toward the men when that got sucked into the lotus. I drove them, all three wailing, to the ships, tied them down under their rowing benches, and called the rest, all hands aboard come, clear the beach, and no one taste the lotus, or you lose your hope of home. So I like the way this person has created two different, or given two different parts of where that those traits are being shown. So, okay. And I will, well, here's another one where they're put together. There's two of them here. The cattle of the sun god shows, I think that's supposed to be just arguably the most important heroic traits of Odysseus, including bravery and trust. He shows his bravery by letting the sailors rest at Thrinacia, even though he knew the ending outcome of all of his sailors dying. Old shipmates, our stores are in the ship's hold, food and drink. The cattle here are not for our provision, or we dearly pay for it. Fierce the god is who cherishes these heifers and these sheep. Helios, and no man avoids his eye. So Odysseus demonstrates his trust when he makes his sailors promise not to touch the cattle. To this my fighters nodded yes, but now we had a month of onshore gales blowing day in, day out south, or south by southeast. And that thought continues out with, as they weren't able to go back out to sea, they were getting hungrier and hungrier, and eventually they had to turn to the cattle. But okay, so actually, let's do this because I think we've touched the sirens and the land of the dead and cattle of the sun god. Are there any sections, Isabel, that you would like to add where there's either traits or frailties exhibited? Right. So that would be in part 2. And to tell about the test and why and how does Odysseus show his traits in this test? What about him hasn't changed? Mm-hmm. 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 Right. Right. I think that's why the part about the dog is so heartbreaking. I hate that part. The coming home part. Oh gosh, that's a terrible part. Um, because really, what do we know about the dog? Right. I mean, well, the thing is, he was a puppy when Odysseus left to go fight the Trojan War. But so the dog is going to be 20 years old. Have you ever known a dog to hit 20? I don't know any dog that's hit 20. I mean, the one that I knew a dog that hit 17 and it was amazing. But so that dog is going, you're right, going to have a lot of problems. But it's because when he comes home and the dog recognizes him, obviously recognizes him, and then drops dead. I think that's. No, I know. But I do think that's a really good proof that he has not changed, in that he's still the same Odysseus that left 20 years before. So I think you could use that as good evidence for that. Um, why do you think Athena has to disguise him as the old man? Why would she do that? Right. In fact, I think they would have probably killed him because there were more of them than. So as long as he showed up and wasn't a threat. So if he showed up as a beggar, he wasn't a threat, then they would just tease him and you know, and he would be the one that comes in and then becomes Odysseus. So, all right. There is so much rich stuff um in this section, and like I said, you haven't even read a third of it. I think there's so much in this, and like Miss Paulson said earlier, so much that our society has kind of absorbed from all the stories about Odysseus. So the essay, the character analysis, you're going to have, of course, the hook. We always know that we start the introduction with the hook. You can use a quote, you can use figurative language, or an interjection. Do you know what that is? My favorite song. That was my favorite grammar rock. So it's interjection. Interjection. It's a shout. It's a single word with the exclamation. And so what would be some words that you could use to start something about Odysseus? Well, let's do this. There, do you have anybody in your family who serves in the military? Okay. Well, because what I'm thinking of is, let's say that the aunt was coming from being overseas. What would you shout when she got off the plane? Think of anybody who comes after a very long being away for a long time. What would you put on a sign, or what would you yell, or what would you shout? Okay. I missed you. Yeah. And the thing is, that would be wonderful if he came home and everybody said, I missed you. But that's not what happens here. And so you could start it out that way. I missed you. That is not what that was not the hero's welcome that Odysseus got. Something like that. Um, then after that, you want to be sure to state the name of the character in the text that you read. This happens with everything that we do, but so you're wanting to make sure that you include Odysseus in the Odyssey. Okay. And the Odyssey is going to be italicized because it's the name of a larger work. So make sure those go in there. Oh, and that also that it was written by Homer. Well, not written, but created by Homer. And then you're going to write a claim in a complete sentence that answers this question: what can we learn about ourselves from studying Odysseus? So let me just ask you that question, Isabel. What can we learn about ourselves from studying Odysseus? Very good. Mm-hmm. And they can inspire us too, right? What he's done can inspire us. So that's really good. So by um, by reading the story about Odysseus, we can learn about ourselves in what we're capable of, but also what can make us stumble and fall. Yeah, great. That's great. Now you're going to go back to this. What did she say? I forgot. Make sure to write it down. Now, there's a couple options when we want to talk about, because our task is to discuss both the frailties and the traits. So you can do it first by talking about one and then the other. So you can discuss in one body paragraph all of the frailties, making sure you have those examples like you see in the discussion boards. And we'll give you another sample in just a moment. And then discuss all of the heroic traits with the examples. And then, of course, you would have your conclusion. Or you could do the comparison of both. And what I mean by that is he is both brave, but he also shows hubris, otherwise known as pride. So there, he on the one hand he's brave, but then it leads to his hubris. You can talk about how he's intelligent, but then he also is self-indulgent. These traits to me seem kind of related if you go too far. If you're too smart for your own good, then you could be self-indulgent. Um, strength versus carelessness. So you could do it that way. This may be a little bit more complicated because you are trying to put side by side the frailty and the trait as how they're related. So are there any others you could think of in the comparison?
Curiosity. During his journey,
Good.
Matt had to work against him. Like every time he goes on to the Cyclops,
Mm-hmm.
his curiosity got the best of him, and he decided to go and see what has to happen.
Perfect. I really like that. That'll be a great paragraph because yes, curiosity is good, but too much of it, well, we know what happened to the cat. um, oops. Was there, let me go back. I got to go back. There we go. Ms. Paulson, was there anything else that either how you would expect the essay to look or any other organization that maybe I didn't see?
Well, I could see this is kind of an epic time, and his character either develops or it doesn't, depending on how you analyze it. But I could see one essay being organized sort of through his development over time as he kind of goes through the journey. Do we see examples of him changing, or where do we see the examples of him changing? So
Okay, chronologically.
if you look at it in terms of like think way back early on, he was in the early lessons of through the traditional mythological hero's journey, like from the very beginning of the journey where we find him to the end. He's kind of been described like as a circle, like a clock,
Mm-hmm.
that each hour there's sort of a different event or a different process happening. You could sort of examine how you might not want to do all of it.
Right. No.
Please no, but
Right. We want to get through to our vacation, don't we, Miss Paulson?
maybe 3 or 4 significant episodes in
I like that. Yeah. In fact, let's go ahead and chronologically, and then I'm going to put or my hero's journey. So many different ways to organize this one, and I think that where the what was that called yesterday in our workshop? The perspiration point is editing down what you want to talk about. Um, that's why we study it because, like I said before, this is so much a part of our culture, and it helps for our own personal development as well when we examine these types of things. Plus, they're pretty interesting, fun, gory, gushy stories. I like it. I'm not sure. I've always had it around Christmas time, and I'm not sure I like to do all that killing around Christmas time, but it's fun. Alrighty. So the outline. This is just a suggested outline for a body paragraph. Um, you can introduce the adjectives. The adjective is like intelligent, brave, in whatever those other traits were. And then make sure that it follows from the paragraph above. So, however you've decided to organize it, make sure that you also have a transition to, like next we see, or on the other hand, one of his frailties is. Now, we want you to start practicing using the text evidence using MLA citation, and I'm going to show you an example of how that looks. You need that commentary to explain how the evidence proves the adjective. If you looked at some of the discussion board examples, they just kind of threw in the quote, and you're supposed to do the work in tying the two together. You need to actually do that tying together for your reader. Present a second piece of evidence, and then another commentary on how they link together, and then wrap up the paragraph and transition to the next paragraph. So how does this look? Well, that looks big, doesn't it? But this is a good sized body paragraph, and it has the elements that we talked about. So it starts with the transition. So while Odysseus does demonstrate he's brave, he also shows that hubris can lead to the human weakness of pride. Then we have, and I've talked about these before, these are so important, these lead-ins, because otherwise it's what I call quote bombing. You're just dropping in quotes wherever you want them to go. But what you need to do is you need to get the reader in the right spot before they get to the quote. So this is the lead-in. When Odysseus successfully escapes from the Cyclops, Polyphemus, he is more concerned with the fact that he gets credit for the task. Polyphemus believes his slayer is nobody, and this is the name that Cyclops cries out to his brothers. Okay, first of all, you will notice that the only thing in quotes was the nobody. Do you remember, because, wait, it might be the wrong class. Maybe we didn't. Did we do this in the class, Miss Paulson, where it was, they had to give a quote and then a paraphrase and then a summary? Oh, that was not this class. Okay. So any time you use information from the text, if you don't copy it directly, but you still use it, you still have to cite it. So in this case, so what I'm looking at for the citation is the page number in the book and then the line numbers. So you'll notice that on the left side there, they have the numbers by 5, I believe, and you need to tell where those numbers are. The reason for this is that the line numbers are going to be the same no matter what edition you're looking at. But because we got it from our text, we'll just use the text number. Okay, so here's one piece of evidence. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to link it together with the claim up top. This does not satisfy Odysseus's ego. Remember that I've talked about hubris and pride. So he's set it up so that he can get away with it, but he's not satisfied. Now the hubris kicks in. Instead, as the ship sails away, Odysseus cries out, "If ever mortal man inquire how you were put to shame and blinded, tell him Odysseus, raider of cities, took our eye." And then there's the second quote with the second citation. Now the analysis. This leads Polyphemus to call on the help of his father Poseidon to curse Odysseus. Even his men try to stop Odysseus from giving away the ship's position by yelling out, and these are the men, "God save Captain," and I already read that one earlier. And notice again, page number, line numbers. And Odysseus admits, "I would not heed them in my glorying spirit." So he realizes that he has kind of blown it for them. "Were it not for this one act of pride, Poseidon may never have sent the ship so far away from Ithaca, a lesson that Odysseus will learn after 10 years away from home." That's your concluding sentence. So this is what I consider an academic paragraph. Ms. Paulson, do you have other criteria, or is there another organization that you specifically use? Okay, so we would expect at least 2 body paragraphs that have these ingredients. They don't necessarily have to be in that order, but all the elements should be there. And let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sentences. So it's between 7 and 8 sentences. Okay, so here are the deadlines. So the first draft, you're actually going to have all of Thanksgiving. I do hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving and that you don't have to do too much work. But you do have until Sunday, December 1st. So you have the rest of this week, and you don't have to look at it again until, Sunday night. And then the peer reviews will be assigned on that Monday, the 2nd at 12 a.m. And the peer reviews will be due the next day at 11:59 p.m. Now, the end of the course, so what that means is it will disappear completely off of your dashboard at 11:59 p.m. on the 18th. That means you have all of the 18th, but on Wednesday the 19th, it will disappear and you can't see it anymore. So all assignments, your grade is under your control. And so you'll get as many of the revisions as you need to get in there before the 18th, so you have plenty of time to get this essay to your liking. I also want to remind everybody that you can do that for every essay. If you went through and you got a revision and that revision was a 25 out of 25, that is your signal to turn it back into the first draft so that you can have it regraded to the rubric and get the higher score. And I've noticed there are a few students who aren't doing that. Look back to the whole semester by doing that all grading periods and see where you can raise your grade. The grade is in your hands at this point. I have no final exam. Ms. Paulson, you don't have one either, right? So your grade is totally based on the average of the 4 modules, or if you came in a little later, we put in your transfer grade. And for all of those who came in with a transfer grade that wasn't that great, if you have time and want to go back and at least start one of the other modules, you are welcome to do that. But what you want to do is make sure that your grade is the way you like it at this point, 12:18, 11:59. Okay? So, Isabel, are there any questions that you have about anything we discussed? Okay. Ms. Paulson, was there anything you wanted to add?
The only thing I do, so when I'm looking at my screen, it says all assignments can still be resubmitted for higher points, but that is only until
Just
not after.
not after the 18th, right? You have up until that 18th to this. This is, in fact, after we get back from Thanksgiving break, I am going to put in on the homepage a countdown clock, and I will send you the code for that, Ms. Paulson, so that you can also put it on yours. And that way everybody knows exactly how much time they have left to make any of the assignments up that they need to. Okay? All righty. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Isabel. I enjoyed talking with you and always with you, Miss Paulson. So I'll get these posted. So it's going to be in 2 parts since we accidentally shut off the other one. So that's okay. Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much and have a wonderful holiday week next week and happy Thanksgiving. Okay. Okay. Bye-bye.